I do not know where to start as an EIA practitioner. That is just one of the place where so many people are stuck, especially new and aspiring environmental impact assessment experts. This is something that I have faced personally. At some point, I did not also know where to start in this industry. Where do I start as an environmental impact assessment? Who is actually trained, who is actually certified, and even licensed? And even at that particular point, I did not necessarily understand how to get my footing in this industry. And most young graduates and young practitioners are confused about these things. And some of the things that I know you may be confused about, and tell me down in the comment section if any of these resonates with you, is I do not know how to get my first clients. Does that one resonate? I do not know how to set up my EIA consultancy firm business practice. Number 3, I do not know how to package my services. And finally, number 4, the main one, I do not know how to price my EIA services. These are some of the common places where we get stuck when you're starting out. Or let me say, these are some of the common places where I got stuck when I was starting out. This is a conversation I wish somebody had with me when I was starting out. And I want us to look at several things. And the first one is to actually understand what is environmental impact assessment. Like for real. I know you have been trained in school. You went through a whole semester, you did environmental impact assessment, you went through another whole course where you did environmental auditing and such things. But what exactly is it? Now, not in school, not in theory, but in real world outside here. Environmental impact assessment is something that is taking root every other day. In the beginning, it was very hard because there was not enough awareness. But right now, there has been so much awareness and education that have been done by NEMA, by other environmental activists and so on. And so right now, people are awake to environmental disasters. People are awake to their rights to a clean and healthy environment. People right now are awake to pollution that is happening in the environment and how it is actually impacting their health, their quality of life, their wealth creation processes, and so on and so on. So right now, when you say that all businesses, all projects, proposed projects that are posing dangers or harmful impacts to the environment need to be assessed first, people actually understand. In our trainings, it was very clear that the environment is a very interconnected system. You cannot necessarily separate one component of the environment from the other. They are interdependent. For example, we have wildlife, animals, living in a forest. In the same forest where wildlife live, we have indigenous trees, indigenous species that are endangered and protected by international laws and so on and so on. In the same space, we have rivers coming away out of that, and we are using those waters to do everything that we need. Again, what is the environment? Environment is everything that is surrounding you. That is the simplest or basic definition of environment. So what is surrounding you? You have air, water, animals, trees or plant species. You have human beings. So when you talk about the environment, you're talking about the biological aspect, the physical aspect, as well as the social aspect. Now, human beings have a system that is so complex, and the complexity is very much intertwined with the other aspects of the environment. When you're coming into this mix as the environmental impact assessment expert, I want you to open up your mind to understand that you are not just looking out for trees, for air, for water, and for the soil and land and such things. In fact, the largest part of the environment that you need to work with and on is the social part, the human activity, human behavior. You need to come to this field with an open mind. You cannot just focus on one aspect of the environment and think you're good. You have to understand what is driving human beings. Why does this thing have meaning? For example, everybody is chasing wealth, right? And money. Why is it important to men? How does this chase for the money affect the environment? How are men polluting the environment? How is the environment impacting the lives of human beings? You have to understand these components of the environment so well so that you can be able to have an idea of what a new project would look like in that particular environment. I don't know if I'm making sense with that statement, but what I'm saying is you have to understand everything that is within the environment, the economy, the human behavior. You have to understand what drives people. You have to understand the natural systems of the environment, as a natural environment, as well as the world of human beings, so that you can be able to interlink them. For example, a hospital is coming into a village. You have to understand that village very well. What are their beliefs, cultural beliefs? What do they believe about money? What are their beliefs about the dead, the sick, the waste? How do they conserve the environment? What is environment to them? Then you have to look at the impacts of that hospital when it sits in that environment, other than the waste it is going to produce, which I believe by now hospitals have a very clear way of handling their waste. What other things that may come up within that hospital? If it has a morgue, what is the perception of morgue and the human behavior, the cultural being of that environment? So you have to not just look at environment as water and air. It is more than that. And that is the only way you will be able to understand the impacts of projects. Because remember, you as the EIA expert, you are not looking at the project just when it is being built, the hospital as in a jengwa. You're looking at it when it starts to operate. That one time when there is a morgue and the neighbors and the villagers scream and come out into the streets and say the spirits of the dead are meeting them out here in their dreams, in their homes at night, and so on. That is an impact. Remember, it is human beings interacting with the hospital. Did I make any sense? You have to be very open-minded on issues. And you have to look at life from all possibilities. In short, you cannot have a fixed mindset on things. You cannot have one directional view of life. Number two, you need to understand the licensing, the NEMA licensing systems and pathways that we have. That first point was out there. I don't even know where it came. That was not in my notes. But the environmental impact assessment is one of the licenses that projects will require that you help your clients acquire. So what happens? How does the licensing process go like? You have to understand, you do the site assessments, you do the report writing, you do the submissions, there's the EIA license fee payments, and there is the follow-up, there is the addressing and amendments to be done on issues. Then finally there is the licensing. How do you create accounts for your clients? How can they access that? You also have to understand the different licenses. For example, effluent discharge license, who requires that license, when do they require it, how do they acquire it, what do they need to have before they can apply for these ones, what are the penalties for not getting different licenses, you have to get this one. Also, when you're talking about NEMA licensing, you have to understand that if you're just starting out, there are licenses that you need for yourself. The first one, you need, when you're starting brand new, you need a mentorship program for at least 1 year. It is NEMA who has decided that everybody, before you are certified, you have to practice for at least 1 year. Not practice, but work under somebody, work under an EIA expert for at least 1 year before you can even get certified. So it's like they are really, really trying to sift out people who are not serious. Then after you have done that one, you get certified. This is to certify that you are an EIA expert. That is associate expert. So you get the associate expert certification certificate. That one, you have to now practice because you have been certified. It is stamped that you are an EIA expert, but then you cannot go out and practice without a license. So every year there is the renewing of your practicing license. You do this for 8 years. You practice for 8 years as an associate. What is an associate? Like in other programs like law and so on, an associate means you are working under somebody. Your projects have to be approved by somebody else before you submit them to NEMA. You cannot necessarily do a project by yourself. You have to have a lead expert who supervises your work, your project, your reports, and so on. So you are under supervision, or you are practicing under supervision for 8 years. If you have a master's degree, you practice that for 5 years. Then after that, you become a lead expert. Lead expert now means that you can now practice projects by yourself. You do not have to have a supervisor above you. So if you get a project, you can go ahead and do the whole project. You do not have to contact a lead or somebody else to supervise your report, to supervise you, and so on. So you can directly submit reports through your own license, by your own license alone. Then there is another form of practice, which is where now you may form a firm of experts. This is where now you register your company, you have lead, you have associates, different kinds of experts come together, and now you register that company or that business as a firm of experts. Now this is you're growing, and so you'll be working in big projects that require different levels of expertise. They need an EIA expert, they need a sociologist there, they need a biodiversity expert, they need all those experts under one house. So those are the 3 levels of practice as an EIA expert. So mainly, I know in this video I am talking to aspiring associate experts or already practicing associate experts. Okay? In the beginning, so in the first 8 years, generally, you'll be an associate. 8 years. Then after that, now you become a lead, and now you practice forever, and now you can even register your company as a firm of experts. So, what are some of the practical skills that you will need? That is my point number 3. You require several skills. And one, like I said in point number 1, you have to be very, very, very good when it comes to human psychology. I will still insist on that, because you have to understand the intentions of human beings, the behaviors of human beings. You have to read human beings. And this is particularly important because part of the environmental impact assessment is public participation. which you shall perform so many times. Right now, NEMA demands barazas, not just questionnaires. But my opinion though, conducting a baraza is easier than going home to home for filling the questionnaires. My opinion though. So you have to know how to conduct meetings, how to manage emotions of people during the barazas, how to lobby for these projects and so on. Then you need to have, I would say, writing skills. You will do a lot of report writing. You need to learn how to write official, professional reports. Some of you people, your English is so bad, you cannot produce a professional report. I am sorry, I said it. One time in the past, many years ago, I was working on a project and I had a supervisor who, after going through my report, he said, "Now tell me, do you understand the difference between the use, where and when, the difference between a colon and a semicolon? Do you? Is it my work to train you how to write English, or it is my my work to train you how to prepare these reports?" Well, not his exact word, but they were in that line. That is when I went back to my grammar and I was like, okay, where do you use full stop? Where do you use a comma? When do you use a semicolon? When do you use a full colon? When do you use those closing and opening? When do you use an those things that we were taught in class 6 or grade what? The grammar, very important. The sentences. There is a way I was used to speaking. I used to kind of, I don't know, it was kind of a slang that I had picked up. I don't know from where, but my sentences looked like they were reversed. There's the grammar way of writing a sentence. I used to kind of revert and start from the beginning. I don't know if I'm making sense, but these are some of the things that I had to learn. I had to learn how to, first of all, speak English. Second, I had to learn how to write professional English. Let me tell you, there are some of you who cannot speak English without mixing it with Swahili or Sheng. Can you address a meeting for 2 hours or so without using Kiswahili? Okay. The other thing, can you actually speak Kiswahili fluently, or you have to mix it with English? Because in most cases you go for barazas in the villages, you will not be speaking English. You will be speaking Kiswahili. Can you speak Swahili, ama you have to mix it with Sheng? And you're speaking to women and men who are a bit elderly. Speaking, writing, those are some of the skills that you have to learn. And other things, not necessarily skills, how to dress up, how to be official, how to present yourself. Those are some of the things that you have to learn. My fourth point is about tools and maybe equipment that you'll need. The first thing that you'll definitely need is a smartphone that has a good camera, because you have to take pictures of the site once you start visiting these sites. So there are apps that you need to have for you to take even the GPS coordinates of different components or different aspects and features that you find on site. Because every statement or every information you talk about in the report, you will defend it with a picture. There is something called baseline data collection. When you're doing this, if you're talking about public health facilities in the area, you will have to have a picture or something to show that you will provide good reports if you can support the information you're providing about the field, support it with pictorial kind of data. So a smartphone is a good one. Then again, you will definitely need a computer, a laptop, a desktop, because you will have to prepare these reports. You will have to write the reports. I know you know how to use Microsoft Word. I know you know how to use Microsoft, you know how to use PDF and so on. You will be required to do the reports. So it will be very, very hard to write a whole report on your phone. It is actually impossible, I guess. So you need a laptop. So a good phone, you need a computer. I don't know if this falls under tools. You will have to have some, some kind of make your dress up, your wardrobe a bit official, have a shirt, have a trouser, have a good skirt, have some, some closed shoes for field works. If you are a lady, you cannot be going to the quarry projects wearing sandals and doll shoes and so on. So have some good boots, some heavy duty shoes for when you're going for site visits. Have a good notebook for when you go to the field. And let me tell you, I know we all take notes with the phone these days. We record the audio, we go and listen back. It is good to have a notebook. Remember, the people you're dealing with, they are not Gen Zs. They are still old-fashioned, and there is a perception of they have with you. If you're not carrying a notebook, if you're taking notes on phone, they feel like, there's that thing of our young men, they're always on their phone. So you might be in a very serious meeting, the county commissioner, everybody is there, and you're taking notes on your phone. But because they're not of our generation, they feel like you are probably on Facebook, on whatever social media platform they think you are on, and they may not take you seriously. So even if you're going to record the meeting on audio or you're going to take notes on your phone, it is good to have a notebook. Just a few of the tools that you will need. Of course, you have tools like checklists. It is important to have a checklist with you so that you do not forget things that you wanted to check out or things that you needed to have them. I always have my checklist. I have several checklists that I have. At least I go through them. I have them in soft on my phone. So when I'm going around, I am always looking to see if I missed anything, so that my checklist is my guide. Those are some of the things that you need. Another one that you need is point number 5. You need to get interested in a certain kind of reports, I would advise, or a certain kind of projects. When you're starting out, think about what do you really want. Don't just sit. Assuming you want to get into the petroleum industry, it is important that you identify yourself in that direction. So you start visiting petrol stations, petrol station managers, you start connecting with people who are in that industry so that you may get projects in that industry. If it is the construction project, for example, you have the contractors, the architects, then there are architects who are big on real estate projects. Then you go to them. They are architects who may kind of specialize in petrol station designs, so you kind of move to them. I'm not saying you need to be very particularly specialized, but think about where you'd want to start, at least for your first few projects. If it's a school, at least start talking to the principals and the head teachers so that they can guide you to the next time there's a classroom being built or so on. Think about where you want to start. Don't just sit, so that you can start investing in that particular area. And this may contradict some of the information and advice that I've given in the past, but I'm not saying for you to just niche down to that one, but you're finding your first one. You have to start somewhere. Where do you want to start? Follow that line. When it comes to pricing your work, We will do a whole video on how to price your services. But one thing that I know most of us do is we undercharge our services so much so that we piss the clients off. Because pricing is a messaging. If somebody wants to do a petrol station, a tier 3 petrol station, and you're charging them 50,000, they will sit and wonder if, especially they are being logical, how will you be able to deliver that report with that amount of money? And they will automatically go to somebody else who is charging more, because the person who is charging more probably is familiar and aware of the process. You cannot charge somebody who wants to build a whole level 3 private hospital 50,000. They will wonder what exactly is happening. But if you charge a borehole 50,000, 40,000, they will understand. But if you charge that client who wants to drill a borehole, you're charging them 250,000, they will wonder what's up. So you have to work, and then I know it is not easy to find this information, but if you are really interested, you get to understand, and you will know the average market price for the projects that you want to work with. And that is why I said at least start with something that you want to identify, that the place you want to start. So if you wanted to start with petrol stations or the petroleum industry, no. Their petrol stations are in tiers. Tier 1, what is the average price that you can charge? What is the average price of these? You have to know the market average, then position yourself. At one point, I was one of the highest charging associate expert when I was in Nyeri. I had grown up through the ranks to be like several clients and associates, partners and collaborators mentioned that in the market, I am one of the most expensive experts. Now, let me tell you, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, depends. What then I noted is that when I was ranked as the most expensive expert, among the most expensive experts, the people or the projects that came to me were the serious projects. I remember one particular time, there was a petrol station project, and my client was talking to somebody, and they were referred to somebody else. And this somebody else is not necessarily the most expensive. They are very competitive when it comes to prices. And somehow, I do not know how, but that client was also referred to me as the most expensive. And they finally ended up in my office. Because if you're charging, that is how the market perceives. If you are the most expensive, then you know what you're doing. Then the only serious people with big projects and what looks complex will come to you. It may not always apply like that, because you cannot be the most expensive and the most careless. If you're the most expensive, you have to deliver. You have to have reasons why you're the most expensive. All right? And then I was in that market. Now I was left to handle the big projects. So somebody who has a borehole, they come to me, I charge them, and then there's somebody else who is 20K less. So they rush into. So I was also able to filter out the kind of projects that I want to work with. And that is how I was also able to build my portfolio, where I have a portfolio that I'm proud of. I've worked in big projects, not necessarily the every other day projects. So I have worked in hospitals. I have worked with county governments I have worked with. Like, I was able to build my portfolio because I was seen as up here because of my pricing. Because pricing is also a messaging. It is a message you're sending to the market, how and where to place you, how valuable you are, and so on and so on. So you'll need more guidance in case that doesn't resonate. It may feel off, it may feel counterintuitive, but it happens. Now, I have spoken so much. This is just a conversation I was having. It is not necessarily a structured video. And what I want to say is, assuming you are somebody who is out there and you want guidance, I have come up with a structured program where I take you through 3 phases of building your practice. We go through these 3 phases that I have found out works in almost every other time for every other person that I have worked with. These 3 phases, we take you through them, and at the end of it all, you are able to launch yourself as an EIA expert in the real world. So in case you're interested in such kind of program, the link is down in the description box. Assuming you're already established or you already know how to start out, but your problem is particularly on how to conduct environmental impact assessments, then the program that you require is my EIA Mastery Mentorship Program. This is a 6-week program where I will take you through the entire process of conducting environmental impact assessment in depth. Okay, so if you're looking to start out, I think how to start an EIA consultancy practice is the one for you. But if your particular problem is in EIA, then my EIA Mastery Program is the one for you. The links to these 2 programs are provided below. Go and check them out and take advantage of the very, 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 very highly discounted prices that we are running the programs at right now. Till next video, bye-bye. Subscribe and share these with a friend or a friend of a friend, and I'll see you in the program. Bye-bye.